Do you know how powerful you are?
Welcome to Rise Urban Nation.
Welcome everybody to Rise Urban Nation.
Reshaping and elevating your mindset to help you achieve what you believe.
Sometimes we don't even see our own greatness. You can't be what you can't see.
And connecting Black cultures to build a community of talent and success.
Black people need to realize that they are assets. You are an asset.
When we rise, you rise.
Come together as a group.
This is Rise Urban Nation with Terrell Simmons.
Welcome everybody to another edition of Risepreneurs. Thank you for tuning in. I gotta give a quick thank you to you, the fans, the audience. Got an email about a month ago that we hit number 87 on the iTunes chart in Africa. So all my Africans out there, South Africans, Nigerians, everybody that's supporting us, appreciate you so much. We couldn't do it without you. We'll be coming soon with more great product and ways to engage with our audience, get our feedback, what you need, what you like, what you want. But without further ado, let's get into this. Next episode, we got Porshe Taylor. She's the founder of FTIO, which is from the inside out. You know, her story is incredible because she's on a fast track to reaching her highest potential and kind of overcoming, you know, some of the obstacles that came into her life due to, you know, alcohol, cigarette habit. And then she was able to find healing and therapy and really started to do this work with herself first and then going into the prison system because her and her husband were a product of, you know, what happens in America when you get introduced to the prison system, and it just becomes an unhealthy cycle when it comes to families and the things that people have to overcome when getting out of the system. So now she's one of the first African-American women to kind of create a nonprofit organization that supplies the correctional institutions with innovative and rehabilitative circumstances. And because we know the prison system in the U.S. is definitely not a rehabilitative type of system. So she's really doing her best to create those spaces to do that. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Porshe Taylor from FTIO, from the inside out. Youths from the ages 16 to 24. And a lot of these youths were in Southeast and San Diego.
Okay.
And when I used to go, and these were like, I would be working with tech companies like Qualcomm. I'd be working with the healthcare system like Sharp.
Oh.
And so getting them good internships and try to get them introduced to different career pathways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And speaking with these youth, I noticed after a while is that we have limiting beliefs on what we can be or what we can do.
Very true. Absolutely.
And so although there's this path and I'm presenting it to them, if what they grew up in their environment, they didn't see people that look like them in this career path and don't talk about these things, they don't think it's for them. Even if I show them like one or two of us, it's like, oh, that's an anomaly, right?
Right.
Like there's only a few people that get in, they got in. I'm going to go the easiest, the best solution. I'm going to be an athlete. I'm going to be a rapper. I'm going to be an artist because there's more opportunities here for me than there, right?
Right.
And I'm like, no, that's not
how that works, right? That's what they want you to do.
Yeah.
That's dope. That's super dope. I mean, I think that's one of the best ways to prevent the kind of work that I have to do because of the lack of vision that is placed within the media or, within like impoverished neighborhoods for Black youth.
Yeah, so I realize there's not enough of our stories being told in the work that we do in the different spaces. Also, that there's a false definition of what success is in America that trickles down to the Black community. And I like telling stories like our stories because the version of what success is for us is not the same definition of what success is. It's not go to college, get this good career, get your pension, get the house. No, that's not it.
Completely backwards.
And so that's what this is about. And it's not even about the youth too, because as I started to do programs for adults too, adults have limited beliefs too. And I'm like, wait, is that truly what you believe? Like, You've been working in this operating system for
Yes.
your entire 50, 60 years?
Yes. Right. That's awesome.
With that being said, let's get into the show. Everybody, welcome to Risepreneurs. I was just giving our guest a brief update on my journey before we get into her journey. My engineer, he's probably going to, make that look nice and finesse it however he needs to. But I love the welcome, Porshe. Do I say Porsche or Porsche? I should know this by now because we already did one interview.
You know what? Porsche is what people call me when they are comfortable with me, so we can leave it at Porsche.
Okay. And I got to speak with her. Was it last week now or was it 2 weeks ago?
It was about 2 weeks ago.
And give us the backstory. How did me and you get introduced? Refresh the memory for the people who are listening.
The beautiful ex Tina. She is just the bomb. A mutual friend of ours. Amazing, amazing young woman. Graciously intertwined us because she just knew the amazing things that we can do if we conjoined. And here we are.
As Xtina said, we got to get all these light workers together at some space and point in time. How did you meet Xtina?
The organization that I founded, we go into prisons and we are volunteer based in regards to our facilitators who go into the prisons and run the programs for us. And Xtina is one of our volunteers, actually.
Okay. All right. I like that. I might have to come do a session one of these days.
Definitely.
So as I gave you an intro, wanted to do this podcast just to kind of show all the amazing, brilliant Black people, specifically Black and Africans. I grew up in Washington, D.C. in when it was Chocolate City, right? And in my neighborhood, there was Blacks, there's Africans, Jamaicans, Dominicans, all of Black origin or descent. And I was raised by a Nigerian Black man. So the interesting thing is I grew up in Nigerian culture and Black culture at the same time. And depending on how I showed up in different spaces is how people relate to me. I could say sometimes my Black American culture wasn't too kind when they thought I was Nigerian. It's like, oh, get out of here, you African booty scratcher. And my Nigerian culture is like, I'm not Black enough to be part of their culture because I don't know they struggle. So I kind of grew up in this weird, I don't know what to call it.
In between that all mixed children go through, you're not enough for either culture, but you're both.
Yeah, and I'm both cultures. So then you get into going into school systems where they treat Black kids like you ain't enough, right?
Yeah.
And so you grow up in these conflicts where I'm not enough, and then not being enough all the way until I hit I want to say mid 30s and 40s. So I resonated with your story when you was talking about it on the radio show.
Oh, thank you.
I felt some of that journey and I appreciated every single word you said. So I wanted to create this show, like I said before, to kind of tell our stories, the ups and downs, the woes, but mostly from a career and self-discovery journey, because I feel like they're both intertwined. I don't know do you feel the same way?
I 100% do.
So I'm going to start off with a framework, because what I used to tell the youth is it's not where you start, but it's where you're going, right? And they used to always have this negative connotation with their first job. And I was like, look, your first job could teach you a lot of things if you're willing to learn from it.
Absolutely.
That you could take to your career. So what was your first job?
Looking back, if I really say what my first job was, it was a little company called Teen Leaders of America, and it was a job that basically after school they would pick you up and drop you off to go door to door to basically sell garbage.
How do you sell garbage? Wait, what kind of what? I got all sorts of questions. What is this selling garbage thing?
That's what I'm calling it. But essentially, it was like knickknacks that probably had very little value.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we would go up to these doors, but they had no rules. I mean, literally, like they gave you a little script, but in the ending result, the driver of the van, which was also your supervisor, which was generally a young male, they made their money off of the money that we made. And we were paid in cash daily. And
Uh-huh.
so this job actually really did have the potential to bring in a lot of money. And it did.
Yeah.
I was making $200 to $300 a day as a 13-year-old.
Wow.
Legally. Look, legally,
Legally. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my first job. I can tell you more about that job, but that was kind
So
of a good step.
what's some of the lessons that you learned from your first job that you took with you as you grew in your career in business?
I learned that I was a very good salesperson.
Okay. Gift of gab.
Yeah, definitely. I learned definitely be aware of pyramid schemes.
Amen to that.
And yeah, and just to appreciate the value of self, because that job, really it taught you to embody your talents. And what I contributed to that, business, it was a trickle effect. It didn't only help me. So the way that it was run, because that business still acts, I don't want to down it because it's a good business for kids. But the way that it was run at the time, I don't think was super beneficial to kids. But it did have just a lot of good lessons, and I'm sure they've cleaned up some of those areas now. So
Yeah, and that's what happens when you put young people in leadership of other young people. So you need to have more of adult mentorship
yes,
in those
absolutely.
type of roles. So fast forward, you are now, I don't know how many businesses you own, but tell the people a little bit about what you do now and some of the things that you do now in your current career or business.
I'm a whole pot of mess, y'all. I work full time still, so I work for the county that I live in. I have done so for about 6 years, but I am a multi-business owner. I own a successful commercial cleaning company. I am the founder of a very successful nonprofit.
Uh-huh.
And I just opened a new business a couple months ago. It's a transitional home, and it kind of runs in conjunction with the nonprofit that I have.
Look, if you haven't learned anything from what she just said, is 2021, you got to have multiple streams of income. You can't be playing around in these streets.
Absolutely. Definitely. Definitely that.
So now take me through the process, because you have the full time and you have the business. How would you define your career at this point? How would you define it?
Just the beginning. That's how I would define it. Just the beginning. Just getting started.
We just getting started. Now,
Yeah.
looking at from the business standpoint and going into the entrepreneurial side, what are some steps that you took to get into business and to get your businesses up and running?
So going back, I'll just start with the cleaning company because it was first.
Yeah.
On my own, I'm kind of like one of those kind of just get out there and go kind of people. When I want something, I am extremely driven. And my husband is formerly incarcerated. I kind of, was back and forth as a youth and young adult before his incarceration term started, had my own issues. But once I became a parent, that was kind of out the door for me. And it's hard for people who are formerly incarcerated to gain, healthy employment that's going to last and that pays well. And so it was like, we got to create our own. If that's going to be the case, we can't rely on working for others. It's not going to sustain the kind of lifestyle that we want to live. So we created the cleaning business. Like I said, I just kind of did my research, priced companies that could help me, because there are companies out there that if you are lacking on the knowledge of what steps you need to take for yourself, for your state, for, incorporating your business or insurance or whatever it is that you need. And I researched a couple of companies, I think for the first business, I probably paid for a little bit of a higher package just because I wasn't familiar with the documents, things like that. And once I was incorporated, I mean, it's really just about jumping out there. To just keep it short, just don't be scared. Take the leap.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to go out on a leap of faith, right? And then hopefully that leap of faith will take you to the next step. I think sometimes we spend so much time pondering the idea that we never get the idea
definitely agree with
up
that.
and running or
I
going,
feel like I
right?
talked to quite a few people who asked me, like how to get started or what to do. And I am definitely one of those people that believe in pouring out blessings onto others. And so if I know, I'm like an open book. I feel like God gives it to you so you can share it. Like you can tell people, so much, and then the next week is there and, they're still there. And I tell people all the time, like stop thinking on it so much, plan it, outline it, draft whatever it is you need to do, and then jump off that cliff, girl. Like once you jump, there's no turning back. You just got to get on that parachute.
Right. I love that. I love that. So are you a big fan of just, man, getting out there, asking people or seeking mentorship if you don't know it? Like, is that kind of your style? Is what you kind of tell people?
I don't know how to say. I don't know, because I'm also like a very closed-in person. So I know that mentorship is needed. It's so weird. I know I'm kind of like in between here. Mentorship is mentorship is definitely necessary, but I'm not a person that goes out and seeks a lot of mentorship, even though I should.
From hearing your testimony on God's Radio 1, the interview that we did, I do believe that you have been a mentor to others. And I think people may have been mentored by you, not like in the sense that they came to you to seek advice, but they've followed your journey and followed your moves or your steps, or listened to the show we did, or they might listen, and then they pick mentorship up from you that way, right? So I do think you have in both ways, but not in the way that you think. I was going to say, did you sometimes find yourself like looking at others' journey and picking up little things here and there from their journey and using that as inspiration, motivation, or?
I noticed very early in the beginning of my entrepreneurial career that that was definitely something that I did a lot. And that's because I truly believe, I think it's normal human nature to see someone in a position that, you aspire to be in and be inspired by them. But the field that I'm in, I walked in as a person that is first and foremost impacted by incarceration. I had never been on the working front side of it. So I had no knowledge of nonprofit realm. I pretty much walked into this business blind, led by God, and just knew I was blindfolded. And, to see other young people of color, brown people, definitely was inspiring. And I definitely, looked at their success as markers at certain points or when I first started. So yes, absolutely. And I plan to continue to find people that I can be like, yes, goals until I meet them.
So I want to dive into that story a little bit more for people who don't know the story, who didn't see our interview on God's Radio 1. And that's in regards to the business of, starting your nonprofit and the prison system. Tell me the journey that got to there. Like, what was the journey that you went on before you got to the point, reflection, and then starting that business? Give me the pre-journey.
I will drop a gem just because we talked about this on the other ones. I'll drop like some extra info that I didn't share there. So myself and my husband, we met as very young adults, probably like 18, 19 years old. Both of us, we were kind of like inseparable from day one. I was kind of already in trouble. Like a better words, I was in trouble. And he wasn't. He was a good person, good boy. He had like some stuff juvenile, like got a fight at school kind of thing, record, but nothing like I was probably headed in a bad path. He was not, And we ended up having our first baby, 20 and 21 years old. And we were doing really good. We had got our first place together. We had 3 cars. Both was working. And we went out to a club one night. And we got back to San Francisco. We got back to our homes where we live at. And we went to sit at one of my cousin's house. And they decided, like somewhere in between the night, my husband and my cousin decided to leave and go get a Swisher from the store. And on that route, they crashed. And my husband was driving intoxicated. So he was held responsible for the death of my cousin. That started off his prison career, as it's called on my side of the working field. And so he ended up doing, I think being sentenced to like 10 years. He ended up doing like 6 of the years. And that was his first ever adult interaction with the criminal justice system. Of course, that was very, traumatizing situation and very hard for my family. And then also, very hard for any adult, but, my husband in general. My cousin and my husband were extremely close. Life was taken, it was lost. That was kind of like, I said, the longest in the beginning of, my relationship with prison and the prison environment. My daughter, like I said, in my world is known as a prison child. She was only 10 months old. And my husband has essentially been incarcerated longer than he's been out here with us. And so he did that term. He got out, made it off parole around 2013 or 14, made it off parole, ended up catching another case and being on probation, doing like smaller terms. And lo and behold, somehow we had then jumped into this cycle of statistics of being like, prison wife, prison child, repeat offender, young Black woman, single parent, all of the statistics that come along with prison and being Black. And so this last journey that we had taken 2018, 2019, I want to say it was around New Year. So one of the two. He had what's called a joint suspension. So at the time when he took the joint suspension, I don't think either one of us was kind of aware of what it was. But when you're about to go to jail and do like 6 years and they say, okay, you can do 6 months instead of 6, you kind of take it and run. And so joint suspension, in short, for people that don't know, is basically like a probation term, a very strict probation term, to where if you mess up at all, like a violation is over like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. This probation is like if you mess up, you get that term, that 6 years or whatever it was that they were holding above your head initially. So it's like a last chance kind of a thing. And my husband clearly wrecked his last chance. So it was like I said, around New Year's of 2019, he went to jail. And my second child, in between there, we had a second child. She was young, just like the first one was. And so I was just distraught. I was kind of like over the entire phase. And I was severely sunken into alcoholism. I was like gone, completely different person than I am right now. Full-blown alcoholic. Thank God I am in a different place. Full-blown alcoholic. So my birthday was at the end of January. I had already had a Mexico trip pre-planned. I ended up going to Mexico. And kind of prior to that, I had been praying, because when you're that far gone with alcoholism, you don't even really want to drink. You drink out of a necessity because you kind of feel like you're going to die if you don't. And
like, I need this.
Really funny,
this is life.
That is so true. But it is what it is. Yeah, I had planned this Mexico trip. I was going through all kind of phases. Depression. I knew I was about to be single parenting again for another 6 years. My one child was going to be, teenager. The baby was going to be, like all the things you think about when incarceration happens. Went on the trip, and it was fun. It was a great trip, minus the fact that I was in such a horrible alcoholic. I was just gone. I might as well not have been there. And so came back, and I was just done. My body just was done. My mind was done. My soul was done. Like, I don't think I could have went on any longer. My soul was tired. I decided right there that I was going to check myself into rehab, like as soon as I got back. So 4 days later, I was in rehab, and that rehab shot out to them, changed my life. It was just very informative. It wasn't like the kind of rehab that's just like, hey, stop drinking. We're here to provide, pills or whatever you need so you don't have withdrawals. It was educational. They had all kind of holistic practices. We learned meditation, we learned grounding techniques. It was dope. It was a dope, like a very intense rehab, but not fully like living rehab. And that's just because I still had to take care of my two children. So I went through the Kaiser program, and it was super dope. Like I loved it. It was very attentive for a program that that you could go home at the end of the day, meaning you still could get intoxicated very easily if you chose to.
Mm-hmm.
They just implemented many things to help you along the journey. And I think the things that were most important for me were like the educational pieces, the pieces that taught me, like why I was going through addictive things, or what my brain was going through, why I had lack of emotion towards things, just all the chemical imbalances that the addiction had caused. And, that for me was what I think probably will last the longest out of the things that I learned, besides the holistic practices, like grounding, meditation, things like that, artistic therapy. They had a host of things that we did while we were there.
Yeah.
And I would recommend their program to anybody who's struggling, who's serious, because it is a choice. You have to make the choice and be ready. So, yeah, once I kind of was midway through my journey of rehab, I had kind of started reading the Bible, like just on a daily basis. Like I dove into my relationship with God and just building it. I feel like I was in such a bad place that that's all I had to grab onto. So I was like fully in. When I was not doing something to stop myself from drinking, that they had taught me, I was in the Bible. And that was like my days for a couple months.
Yeah.
So with that, I kind of was like doing meditation, reading the Bible. You know what I mean? It was just, I was there. That was it. There was me and God and me. One night I went to sleep. I did like a reflection meditation. I went to sleep and I dreamed. I had a dream about what is now my very successful nonprofit. That dream gave me the push to build a business. And it is something that I really just feel like it was just a way for God to communicate with me and show me vision, because it was something that was like stamped into my brain. And ever since, my life has been different.
Yeah. So now this gives me really good context to the name of your nonprofit, From the Inside Out, because you literally went through therapy, reflection, meditation, relationship with God from the inside out. And I just love every time I hear you tell that story again, I get goosebumps. Now, it was supposed to originally just be a website in your dream, right?
That's correct. Yes.
So how did it go from website to what it is today?
You know what? Something that came up in the last interview that we did, it's popped up in my mind like a couple of times. And I think that this question leads directly to it. One of the questions that was asked was, how do you fully submit yourself? And, I gave like a shell of an answer. Forgive me if you watch this, because I'm horrible with names. But one of the other co-hosts, the one that was impacted by incarceration, he gave just like such a wonderful, in-depth answer about submission to God. And something it brought up for me while he was explaining his version of submission, which was wonderful, like I said, was being willing to chase God in the moments where you get comfortable with what you're doing, in the repetitive stages of submission, of getting up, of praying, of just, doing what you do. There's a stage where I believe you're comfortable. And you have to be willing to go outside of, the box that you've been in to find God, to search for your stronger relationship. And that is something that I was practicing. I feel like I was in such a close place with God and with the Holy Spirit that once I built a website, it was kind of like, okay, now here, my sister, which I gave her a shout out last time because she helped me do everything. I sat down and I said, you know what? I want to write everybody on death row. And this was not just in California. I meant like across the United States. So we sat down and we like Wikipedia. Everybody on death row had to search out their names, search out their Department of Correction numbers, which is like their name for prison, and addresses. And we just dry mailed hundreds of people on death row. Just kind of wrote a letter telling them my story, telling them about the dream, and, you know, like that I wanted for them to share their story to bridge the gap. And so that was kind of how we first started. And through doing that, I ended up meeting a young man named Edric Brown. If you guys check out my website, his story is there, written and on video. Amazing young man, extremely talented, and unfortunately very unfairly sentenced, and is currently serving a life sentence in California Department of Corrections. Now, he is up for commutation, so y'all can shoot like a letter.
Keep praying for that, brother.
To the governor. Amen. But yeah, I ended up meeting him and doing some heavy praying. And, you know, God clearly told me, I have been like for a couple of days, I watch a lot of sermons online, and it's pre-COVID. I just will watch sermons throughout the day to, you know, stay healthy, right? For like a week prior to me meeting him, I kept on getting a sermon over and over and over about God puts a vision in front of you and you do everything he says, and then he changes the vision. And you're like, no, that's not what you said the first time. That, you know what I mean? It kept coming up, this sermon. It was a Sarah Jakes Roberts sermon. And when I met the young man, I knew automatically, I knew that he was the reason. I knew that I had to change my plan. What I thought that God had told me was just a website, into this next phase of it, which was for us to offer rehabilitative self-help programs, which Edric Brown wrote the majority of FTIO's programs.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. And for everybody who's listening, who she's referring to earlier in that question is Michael Dunn from Let's Talk About It on God's Radio 1. He's had a similar journey in recovery from alcohol, did some time. I hope to get him on the interview one of these days as well, too. That story just kind of speaks to you in a nutshell. Sometimes you got to just trust the journey, trust the process, believe in God's plan, submit yourself to his will, and then he will remove all the barriers for you. Like, and
absolutely,
you know, take you to the next place where you need to be. What's one good life lesson or one good lesson life has taught you?
To always be a student. Think that, you know, we should strive to learn every day, to remain as humble as possible, and especially as a person of influence, just to jump in the back seat. Like, you don't have to be the driver.
Okay, I love that. So now, what's some advice you would give to someone who would like to start a career doing what you kind of do in this industry, like whether it's being a mentor, building a program, giving therapy to somebody, something around mental health and wellness? Because I feel like the work that you're doing is all of that. It's encompassing all of that. What advice would you want to give to someone who would like to start a career in your industry doing some of the same work you're doing?
I would definitely say, I think one of the first and foremost, like, consult God. I'm going to tell everybody that, you know what I mean? Like, consult God, pray over your business, give it to God. I always say, this is not my business. I work for him. He tells me what to do. But after that, you know, after you get the green light in the criminal justice industry, I think it's very important to consult the people who are incarcerated first. You know, we tend to walk in, if we're not, you know, a person that's been in a cell or, you know, very closely impacted, and we want to inflict our opinions and our thoughts on what's best for people who are going to be returning citizens. And we generally don't incorporate what they feel. And so if you're going to come into this business, definitely talk to people who are impacted first. And, you know, and then incorporate that with your ideas. Just like I said earlier, you know, do your research, draw your outline, and just go, you know, take the leap of faith. It's okay to mess up. If you fall, you know what not to do the next time. Get back up and do it again.
Absolutely. I resonate with all that too. And I do think we need to change the lens of how we look at our rehabilitative services, because the rehabilitative service you went to is transformational, and that's what rehabilitation should be. And I do not think our current systems, like jail system and so forth, is set up to do that. If you look at what's going on in Norway and what they've been able to do, that's rehabilitative right there. Our system is not set up that way. Even when I think about our communities, how they're impacted. If you see somebody that gets a DUI in a predominantly white, wealthy community, they have true rehabilitation. They send them to therapy and these tranquil places to get the help and things they need. In our communities, we don't have that. You go do some jail time, or you may go see they may send you over to this place, but it's not rehabilitative or
Right.
life transforming, right? And I think we need to really change the way we see that. I see a lot of movement also going in the news and in our government of how they're trying to move the industry, the jail industry, from being a private industry and so forth. What do you think the future has in store for your industry when you look at the correctional industry and then the services you provide? What do you think the future has in store?
I am very involved in the political side, especially for the state of California. I'm very involved in the political aspect of what goes on with the criminal justice system nationally or federally. I wish we were more involved, and I plan on us being more involved. And I mean that by saying federal prisons. We do run programs outside of California. But in regards to federal prison, like private prisons, for instance, that is not a California theme per se. Like California, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, Gavin Newsom ended contracts with private prisons. And so we had incarcerated people in Arizona, like all over the place, because, they had these contracted prisons, and he pulled everybody back. So all of our incarcerated population is on California soil. What they did do, however, is like created contracts with that same company, Geo, and now they own like all the transitional houses. So
what? How's that?
Yeah, I just recently found that out because I'm getting into the transitional housing business. So I'm kicking down other doors because it's not really impacted people that own these houses that are really trying to help them. It's people that are profiting off of them.
Wow.
With that being said, back to your question, for my particular industry, which is widespread at this point, I don't see prisons going anywhere. Like, actually fully closing down. I do see a large reduction coming. And that's just because like reformists like myself, advocates like myself, we're not going to let up. Like, what we have going on in the United States as our prison industry, it doesn't work. It's a business at this point. And, you have to call it out as such. We allowed for far too long for people to create laws that they could benefit from. They created laws that basically caged people for profit. And so now we are slowly but surely chipping down and tearing down those laws that were created, which is allowing for more people to be released, which is why on my end, I am trying to develop things like transitional housing. I'm trying to develop resources outside because we can't just be trying to pull people from the cage and not help them reacclimate into society.
Yeah.
And so I don't plan on us going anywhere. What we do is absolutely needed. What I do plan on is being actively sourced and funded as far away from possible as CDCR. It's very hard to work and do things to want to help the people and be against the company that you're working directly with.
Yeah.
So,
You need not say no more. I understand the bureaucracy. You don't have to say any more.
Yeah.
So what projects are you currently working on, and where can people find you?
Absolutely. Currently, what our next ventures are, so we just opened the transitional house. So we're definitely trying to stabilize there. But my next goal, because I'm definitely a next kind of girl. The next goal that we're going to do is to bring the programs outside. So to have, regular community members be able to sign up and take our programs and enjoy the fruits of what we have to offer. And so that's something that we're kind of like building the skeleton of and looking at how it could work. But we're actually looking at working with Xtina on that and bringing some of her healing practices in. And so I think it's going to be awesome.
Yes.
So super excited about that.
Like I love all the work Xtina's doing. I wish I could bring her on the show, but this is not her platform. But I brought her on God's Radio 1.
That's right. That's right.
Because this is our platform. Although I got love for her.
Well, my organization can be found on all platforms under Prison FTIO _Inc. And I can be found on IG and Facebook under Porshe Taylor. That's PORSHE TIARA.
And don't worry, if you guys are driving in your cars and you couldn't write this down, I'm going to have her email me all those links so I could put it in the show notes for you so that you could connect with her if you're interested in doing business with her, learning more about her story, supporting her programs. All the links will be in the bio once I post it. Any other things that you want to give to the people before we sign off?
I would throw out those websites, but just like you said, the links will be there. So I think we're all good. Everybody stay blessed, stay safe, stay COVID-free.
Absolutely. Miss Taylor, it's been an honor and a pleasure to be in your presence, in your company, hear your story. I appreciate you so much, sis. You truly are an inspiration and a gift to our community. And I wish you nothing but success. And I can't wait to see what this grows into. Keep doing, keep pushing. And whenever you need anything, you always got a brother in me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Risepreneurs. And if you ain't following this woman and supporting this woman, don't make me jump through your radio or to your TV screens to shake you up. And I'll see you guys on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Rise Urban Nation.
Thank you for taking the journey.
Be sure to like, comment, and smash that subscribe button. And stay connected with Terrell on and off the show. Follow at Rise Urban Nation on all platforms.
Do what you love what you do. Don't chase the money. Let the money chase you.